So you bought a gun. Maybe you've been carrying it for years. You've also got a permit. You took a class. Yay! And you've been doing your thing. But somewhere along the way, a buddy at the range told you you'd be crazy if you don't have USCCA. Dude, you got to get USCCA. Maybe you saw one of their ads on YouTube or Facebook. Now you're trying to figure out if it's worth whipping out the check or credit card for $400 to $600 a year, or if it's just an expensive peace of mind that mostly benefits people who will never pull a trigger. Here's the problem, I think, with every USCCA review you'll find online. Most of them are written by guys who's either signed up last month, read the benefits, then run the math on the coverage limits, or they've been doing it for decades and have never used any of their programs or training. Now, I will say I absolutely have no problem with USCCA. Love their stuff. I'm a USCCA certified instructor. I've taught their curriculum. I've watched real people my age, people with physical limitations, and real families try to figure out if this makes sense for them. Is it worth the money? And there's a critical detail regarding USCCA's recently policy language and how they handle self-defense that could completely change your coverage and your mind. Most people are completely blind to it, but we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of that in the fine print in just a couple of minutes. But first, if you're over 50 and carrying a firearm seriously, your brain's probably running a calculation right now, and you want to know three big things. Dave, what about these? One, what am I getting? What am I actually paying for under the hood? Two, how does it hold up against the competition? Three, does the standard training leave older shooters behind? Well, we're going to answer those. We're going to answer all three. No BS, no tactical hype, just the straight facts so you can protect your family and your wallet. Now, I'm Dave with Everyday Gun Owner. We help older gun owners solve real problems, physical limitations, home defense planning, self-defense, and mindset, so you can protect the ones you love. Now, before we look at hard numbers, let me tell you why I stopped looking at this stuff like a standard consumer. When I first became a certified instructor, I hit the ground running, taught their standard curriculum exactly by the book. The materials are great. They're actually well organized, clear, and built around practical scenarios rather than tactical fantasies, and I love that. But after teaching a few classes, I hit a massive wall as my own as an instructor. I started looking closely at the real people, the actual people sitting in my classrooms, people my own age with real families, but also with real physical limitations, and I realized something that made me kind of uncomfortable. The standard curriculum of USCCA completely assumes you're relatively able-bodied. Doesn't tell you what to do when your hands hurt, completely ignores what happens when your front sight's a total blur because your eyes are changing or you wear progressives like I do, or your carry setup stops working because your back hurts and your body's changing. Now, I realized I was handing people a great legal framework, basic foundational stuff, which is great, but I was completely ignoring the physical reality of them actually using a firearm when their body didn't want to cooperate. And that was a huge wake-up call for me. It's a massive gap in the industry, and it's the exact reason why we, Everyday Gun Owner, exists. We help fill in that physical reality that corporate training just leaves behind. Now, when you pop open the hood and look under USCCA, I'm going to break it down into basically three distinct pillars to help you decide if this fits for your life and if it's worth your time or money. I've broken the reality of the ecosystem into three core nuggets or three core areas. The first is the infrastructure. Now, most people buy USCCA membership thinking they're just buying insurance. That's the wrong thing to think about. You're actually buying an ecosystem. If you just treat it like a fire extinguisher, hang it on the wall, forget it's there, and hope you never need it, you are going to feel like you wasted your money. This runs three levels. The gold is $399 a year. Platinum is $499 a year, and the elite is $599 a year. If you pay annually, it's cheaper. And if you're serious enough to evaluate this, you're probably serious enough to commit to a year. But again, if you just leave it on the wall, don't use the training, you're absolutely wasting money. But this is actually what you're paying for. It's what they call their Protector Academy. It's their online curriculum, their online training. My thing, but I like the Concealed Carry magazine. And they also have a multi-state reciprocity map. If you're doing any RV travel, road trips, that reciprocity map alone removes a massive cognitive load. If you use the training infrastructure, it's absolutely worth the money. If you don't, you're basically paying for training you don't use. Now, the fine print, this is point number two, The critical detail I mentioned up front. This is the one I think most people completely miss when they're comparing plans. USCCA is backed by a commercial insurance policy administered by Delta Defense. That matters because commercial insurance operates under state insurance regulations and they can have teeth. The actual policy language, and I've read it and looked at it, contains a recoupment clause. And what that means in plain English is if you're convicted at trial, or if you accept a plea deal to a charge that qualifies as a crime of violence and applicable law requires it, the insurance company has the right to recover their money they spent defending you. Every dollar. So if your defense costs $200,000, that bill can come back to haunt you. Now, I want to be fair. USCCA has updated their language, and the recoupment is not automatic. It's triggered if it's required by applicable law. The conviction also has to be final and non-appealable. Now, these are real protections. The clauses in the contract, read it yourself before you sign up, but it's definitely something to think about. And I think that's the fine print most reviewers never touch or mention. Now we're going to see how it stacks up to the competition. USCCA versus the big one, the NRA. They're completely different. NRA is primarily a political and legislative advocacy organization. USCCA is education and legal protection. Now, a lot of serious gun owners belong to both, and you absolutely can, but they are not the same. Looking at CCW SAFE and USCCA, SAFE has no clawback cause, which matters, but their contract states they only fund your defense if admissible evidence of self-defense exists. And corporate managers can technically make that call on day one. So if the facts are a bit messy and the charges are aggressive, they can technically deny you before a lawyer even walks into the room. Looking at USCCA versus US Law Shield, Law Shield deploys a lawyer directly and has no clawback clause, no recoupment clause. Catch is you don't get to choose your attorney. You get whoever's in their network, and I'll be doing a full breakdown of all of these in the future. Now, looking at the last one, attorneys on retainer, then USCCA. Now, if training and education matter to you, USCCA wins. But if you want the strongest possible legal coverage with no clawbacks, no day one denials, and full attorney-client privilege from the first phone call, attorneys on retainer is absolutely worth a serious look. I'm going to do a full breakdown of them as well. Now, nugget number 3 is what I call the 1 mile wide gap. And it goes under their training and who they're addressing. This is the third rule you need to understand, and I think it's the one a lot of reviewers skip. Their USCCA curriculum is absolutely solid. The legal use of force is generally useful, not denying that. But as I mentioned earlier, their training simply cannot account for individual physical limitations. It assumes a relatively able-bodied adult. It doesn't tell you what to do when your joints ache, your front sight's a blur because you're old and blind, or when your carry setup stopped working because your body stopped working. Now, they built training for their roughly 900,000 members with a huge range of experience. They basically have to go a mile wide and an inch deep. They can't go deep on every sub-niche or subpopulation. So I would like to think of it this way. USCCA gives you the legal framework and the foundational training. We fill in the physical reality of carrying. We fill in that physical gap of carrying and using your firearm when your body doesn't want to cooperate. And these things absolutely belong together. Now, I want to leave you with 3 questions to think about this week. Do you have a plan for the 30 seconds immediately after a self-defense incident? Doesn't have to be a gun, any self-defense incident. Who do you call? What do you say? And what do you not say? Have you had any structured training since you got your carry permit or bought your gun? Or have you been running on the same habits for years, possibly while your eyes, grip, and body have changed? Now, if your spouse or partner had to handle a self-defense incident alone, do they have any idea what to do legally and practically? Now, if these answers seem a little uncomfortable, that's actually a good thing. That's your answer on whether USCCA is worth it. Please, I encourage you, go to their site, read the membership options, read the actual policy language on the insurance yourself. Don't just buy it because of a YouTube video. Please decide. If you do sign up, I'll put a link in the description. And because the human brain prefers the path of least resistance, I've made filling out that gap completely effortless for you. Again, USCCA covers the legal and foundational side. They do not cover what happens when your body changes. Now, we've built a set of completely free practical training resources that do fill in those gaps. I've got blueprints on carrying comfortably with back and hip pain, shooting accurately with vision problems, building a home defense system, carrying when it's uncomfortable, all that. You don't have to hunt for them. The link to each of those is in the free resources below. Tap that link, drop in your email, and we'll get you on a good training plan and we'll get you on our newsletter. So until next time, stay safe, and we'll see you in the next video.